And of course I hit F10 again while I was running the debugger. And the difference between F10 and 11 is, at this point doesn't matter. I just need to remember to hit F11. Anyway, so that's a while loop in a nutshell. There's another kind. Well, actually, it's very common to initialize a variable, check that variable's value against some boundary, and then increment that variable's value. And it's so common that instead of doing this with a while loop, we will do it with a for loop. And a for loop is a while loop, but rearranged essentially. So I can come in here and I can say for, and then I grab this expression statement up here, and I cut it and I paste it here. And then the update is what we call this. We're updating the variable's value. I'm going to cut that, put a semicolon right here, and then paste it and get rid of that trailing semicolon. So now we have what's known as a for loop. And basically a for loop, it can declare a variable and stick a value into it. It's called the initialization. It runs only once per for loop. And then it runs the test every single loop iteration, as we saw with the while loop. And then it runs the update at the end of iteration. And when I say iteration, basically an iteration is between the opening curly brace and the closing curly brace. So it starts here, iterates, and gets done with the iteration. So at the end here, it will run the update expression. So I'm going to hit F11 here and step through this. You see, first thing it does is go to the initialization. I is 0. The yellow means we're about to execute this line. It has not executed yet. Hit F11. I is now 1. It then jumps to the test. It runs the test before iteration. We see that I is, if I can get the focus again, I is 1. 1 is less than 20. Notice it did not move to the update. It jumped straight into the iteration. This is exactly like what the while loop was doing. We run the iteration. We do the update, which is I gets I plus 1. So I's value right now is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. And it's going to stuff that into I's value, which will make I then 2. 2 less than 20? That's true. Continue. And it does that on and on and on until I becomes 21, and 21 is greater than 20. So then the loop will complete. Oh, you see it just repeats until we get to 20. And it does done, and then the program completes or terminates. One little thing here, this I gets I plus 1, or any value gets itself plus 1 is so common. There's a shortcut in programming, and it's the plus plus, which has different meaning depending on how you write it, but essentially the plus plus does the same thing. It says increment I by 1, so I can run that and get the same result.